The missing town of Dinas, Indiana. In the 1980s, there was a small town in Indiana named Dinas. There was a courthouse, post office, some smaller businesses, service station, and maybe a neighborhood or two. What made this town a little bit different was the fact that it was surrounded by woods, with the entrance and exit being on the same road. You couldn't just drive through. It's like it was one big circle. People were nice but always acted off. I remember Dad telling me not to go out in the woods at night because it wasn't safe. I always listened, except when Alice asked me to go to a bonfire that summer night. Alice was different from the rest. She had moved across the street from me a month prior, and she was an army brat. When I started to get to know her, she told me that she wasn't going to be here long, and she looked forward to leaving this shitty town. I never blamed her, and I could never save her from that night. I guess I'm getting sidetracked. I need to take my meds before I keep writing. Where was I? Oh yeah, the night Alice invited me to the bonfire. When I think of that day before the incident, it was bliss. We spent the day together. We rode our bikes to the creek. We ate at the kinda nasty burger joint. We had all the time in the world to do what we wanted. Back then we didn't have phones, so when there was a party or something, it was all through word of mouth. Geez, I guess I am showing my age. Anyways, we got invited to a bonfire out in the middle of nowhere in the woods. I explained to Alice that Dad would kill me if he knew I was out in the woods after dark. And I get the normal reaction whenever I tell her I'm not going to do something rebellious. So you're a pussy? Life's too short to follow the rules is pretty much what she would say every single day. But I never knew how short life could actually be. I decided that I would go, but I would need a good lie. I ended up telling Dad that I was staying at her house. Dusk comes, and we head out. Another thing I forgot to mention. Whenever there was a party, you have an address to go to, but the bonfire. The only thing Alice had to go off of was the fact that it was near a small cave opening, and there was a concrete pad where people would be smoking stale weed and drinking expired beer. Alice thought she knew where it might be, and I just followed her. About 30 minutes in, I thought I had heard someone behind us. I looked and didn't see anything. I kind of figured that it was someone looking for the party and ended up going a different way. A snapping branch here, some leaves crunching here. I was focused on what was behind us when I ran into Alice. We both fell onto the cold, damp ground. I asked her if she was okay, and she said yes, but she kept looking into the distance. There was a house that looked abandoned. We looked at each other, and she had her shit-eating grin on her face whenever she was going to do something stupid. She was going into the house. We stepped in, the half-hanging door slamming behind us. That gave both of us a little scare. It was a 2-story house. It looked like a basic layout of a home. Kitchen, bathroom, living area, dining area, and a bedroom on the first floor. Everything looked decayed and rotted. The stench of damp, moldy wood filled every part of our nostrils. I was not enjoying this. Alice was messing with some sort of copper dining utensil when I looked behind me and noticed the door was open. I tried to tell her we should leave, and she agreed, but made me promise to go back tomorrow. When we were leaving, I shined my flashlight to a busted-out window on the 2nd floor, and I know I saw 2 eyes staring at me before darting away. In the 1800s, this land was one of the more notable Civil War sites. Many died and were reborn into something else. People say that if you are in the woods at night, you can still hear the screams of death coming from all around you. And if you go deep enough in, you may come out a changed person. Anonymous townsperson, I told Alice what I saw, but she didn't think anything of it. We just kept trekking our way to the supposed bonfire. We had small talk here and there, but all I could think of was the eyes. Was someone in that house with us? The twig snapping became more and more prominent. And that's when we heard it, the blood-curdling scream. That damn scream. I heard it before I saw it, and I remember it like it happened yesterday. It was in the trees, kind of perched like an owl. It looked like a human, but the proportions were off. One leg was shorter than the other, and the arms. The arms were the longest arms I have ever seen, with 3 claws at the end of each arm. Its skin is like leather, dry and cracking all over. The face was one of a monster. Bloodshot eyes, missing nose, and a still fresh bloody mouth. I couldn't do anything but stand there, frozen in fear. It screamed again and again and again. Alice and I dropped to the freezing forest ground, and so did the demon. With our lights off, we laid there on the ground, just waiting to die. We heard stomping all around us for what felt like hours. I can't exactly recall how long we laid there, but once everything died down, we got up and ran. There was a retired Confederate general by the name of Gerald C. Anthony who decided to come up north to spend the rest of his days unbothered in our town. He was a drunk, and being a drunk brought debt. With debt brought promises, and with promises came lies. His house was secluded in the woods and lived with his wife and daughter. After a while, people started to disappear, and the blood trail led to the old general's house. When the raid happened, the townspeople found a great deal of disturbing scenes. There was a hole in the floor with different symbols and a black, viscous liquid. In the downstairs bedroom, there was a crib with the same liquid. And upstairs in the main bedroom, there was the retired general, his wife, and a pile of bodies. Some were cut up, and some were stitched together to form a disproportionate human. The general said one word while holding the corpse of his deceased wife. Perfectum, before falling over with his eyes rolling to the back of his head. Indiana. Myths and legends, we found our way back to the house we saw. We had to take a break from all the running. As far as I know, we weren't followed. We caught our breath and talked about what we saw. We couldn't believe it. Alice got up to look outside, but as she was walking to the door, the decaying wood gave out and she fell through the floor. I grabbed her arm and was trying to pull her up. I heard a faint stomping underneath me that got closer and closer. We had to be careful to make sure the floor didn't give out from me. I got her halfway up and then started feeling resistance. And then the screaming came. I swear to this day, I hear the screaming. Her screaming. Have you ever heard flesh tear? It almost sounds like paper. The interconnecting fibers ripping out of place. The bones snapping sounds like the echo of a gunshot. I knew she was gone, but I kept holding on. Once the screaming stopped and the tug-of-war of my friend was done, I was alone. Daylight came and the local PD found me. I tried to explain what happened, but I was dismissed. I was taken home to my dad, who was talking to Alice's parents. I couldn't look them in the eye, her dad begging to know where his baby girl went. Her mum wondered how this could happen to them. I always wondered how they found out. From what Dad told me, there was indeed a small cave next to a concrete pad where a party was going to happen. They found the cave before they found me. When investigating the cave, they found all sorts of things: old bones, notes, personal jewelry. Alice wore a necklace with her dad's old army dog tags. They were returned to her father, still bloody. Her clothes were found covered in the black slime. Her body was never found, but I knew where it had gone. On the evening of Tuesday, July 1st, 1982, tragedy struck Dinas, Indiana. A serial killer still at large targeted a party in the woods, leaving 22 people deceased and one unknown survivor. Local law enforcement described the scene as a dark, grisly, animal-like sight with bodies and blood covering the area. County and state police are also joining in on the hunt for the unknown serial killer. Newspaper clipping from the day after the incident, Dad and I moved away a week later after the funeral for Alice. The funeral was nice, but if she were still here, she would have hated it. All these people sobbing over her. But it was nice. Her father had given me the dog tags she always wore. And to this day, I still wear them. We kept in contact with them all the way until they passed. Her mother was the first to go, and then her father. I don't know how they passed. I'd rather not.
No, if I'm being honest, I just hope the three of them are united back together again.
I've tried finding the town on the internet, but it seems like it's disappeared from the face of the earth. Dad refused to talk about it, but when he passed, he left notes. And in those notes were descriptions of the area and landmarks, almost like he knew what I was going to be looking for. I've narrowed down some possible areas in Indiana, and I'm going to look for his place again. I need to figure out the truth of what happened that night. I'm going back to Dinas, Indiana,